This story is haunting enough to linger long after the fire goes out set against a frozen frontier where snow erased every road forward. That was the place where two broken lives crossed without warning. It began with a single knock on a cabin door, something small, almost desperate, yet powerful enough to change the course of an entire lifetime. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like on the video and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The night still comes back to me sometimes. Montana Territory, winter of '82. Snow falling so hard the world shrank to arm's length, swallowing sound, swallowing sense. I had my boy in my arms, Jonah Reed, burning hot despite the cold. My mare had gone down miles behind us, lost to a drift I couldn't fight. I kept walking because stopping felt like dying, and dying felt close enough already. The fever was climbing fast. My legs were shaking. I was ready to sink into that white silence and let it finish me. Then I saw it. A window. One square of yellow light slicing through the storm, steady and warm, like the last word of a prayer spoken too late, but still heard. I knocked, not knowing whether I'd be met with mercy or a gun muzzle. What answered was a woman standing in lamplight, a rifle held tight in hands, shaped by years of labor, not kindness. Her grip trembled just a little. She was 51. Silver threaded through dark hair like creek water under frost. Beautiful in the quiet, guarded way, loneliness makes a woman sharp lines, careful distance eyes that measured before they trusted. She had every reason to turn us away. Two strangers dragging cold and trouble into her still life. She should have closed the door. Instead, she stepped back and let us cross the threshold. In that moment, the world bent. I tell myself sometimes I should have ridden out again come morning. Some things are safer left untouched. But that first night, Abigail Crow moved with quiet purpose, setting tin cups on the table, ladling thin soup like it mattered. Like it was sacred. Parsnip broth. Mostly water. But it was hot, and it was given without condition. Out here that carries weight. I watched her in that small cabin. Every movement deliberate, learned. The way she smoothed a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The way her eyes drifted to Jonah asleep by the fire, then away again, as if she'd revealed too much. "You have a wife?" she asked, plain and direct. 2 years gone, I said. Fever took her quick. "Mary Reed, I didn't say the name. I didn't have to." Abigail nodded once. No sympathy, no soft lies. Just understanding. 7 years for me, she said. Pneumonia, buried Thomas Crow behind the barn. You ever notice how grief recognizes its own? Like a quiet signal passed between strangers. Sitting there while the wind clawed at the walls, I felt something shift inside me. Two people who knew empty beds, cold mornings, the cost of surviving. "You live out here alone?" I asked. "I do." No bitterness in her voice, just truth. She told me she'd raised 2 boys, both grown. Samuel Crow ran west chasing gold. Ethan Crow took work in St. Paul. Neither wrote. Jonah stirred in his sleep, and Abigail crossed the room to pull an old quilt higher around him. Her hands were careful, practiced in a way that made my chest ache with something I thought had died years ago. "You're strong," I said. "Living like this." She let out a short, dry laugh. "I'm old and stubborn," she replied. "That isn't the same thing." I studied her, then truly studied her. Firelight caught the silver in her hair and held it there. The lines at the corners of her eyes told stories of brutal winters and losses that lingered. Yet beneath all that was something intact. Not ruined, simply waiting its turn. "I don't think you're old," I said. Her brow lifted. "How old are you, mister?" It struck me then how long I'd gone without saying my own name, how strange it felt to stand still long enough to be measured. 35. She drew in a sharp breath. "You're a boy." The truth dropped between us like a stone into calm water. She looked away, swallowed hard. Honesty does that. It shifts the room, alters the air. "You can stay the night," she said at last. "But you'll ride on in the morning." "I don't have much," I said. "I understand." I watched her profile in the glow, the steady set of her jaw. "But if you'll allow it, I could mend that barn door I saw banging in the wind, set the fence posts by the road." Her arms folded, guarded. "You offering to work for shelter, I'm offering to help." Something moved behind her eyes, surprise, maybe, or a feeling she hadn't named in a long while. It had been years, I guessed, since help came without a price. 2 days, she said, finally. That's all. 2 days. If I'd known then what those days would take from me, and what they'd give back, I might have turned into the storm. But the best choices out here are often made without weighing them. Those days stretched slow and sweet. I fixed the door reset, the posts split, and stacked enough wood to see her through spring. Jonah Reed trailed Abigail Crow like a shadow, firing questions about hens and gardens. And Abigail, God help me. The smile she wore when my boy brought her the first egg from her red hen cracked something open in me like ice, breaking on a thawing river. Mornings were the hardest. I'd stand by the wash basin behind the cabin sleeves rolled, watching her hang laundry in the cold air. The easy grace of her movements. The way she'd catch my eye and color would bloom in her cheeks, as if being seen were a small shame. "The water's freezing at night," I said one morning, my voice rougher than I meant. She didn't turn, kept her hands busy. Spring's still weeks away. I said her name Abigail, soft as a prayer. "Look at me." When she did, water dripping from reddened fingers, I saw it, the want she'd been hiding. The way her gaze traced my jaw, my throat, where my shirt had loosened, made my blood slow and thicken. "You've been avoiding me," I said. "I've been working," she replied, though her voice betrayed her. "So have I. That doesn't mean I haven't noticed how you look at me when you think I'm not watching." Her cheeks burned deeper. "I don't know what you mean." She did. So did I. What was growing between us was dry season fire, quick, dangerous, impossible to ignore. "What are you afraid of?" I asked. The question lingered between us like smoke that refused to clear. Abigail Crow pressed her lips together, wrestling with something deep and stubborn. At last she spoke, barely louder than breath. "I'm afraid," she said, "that one morning you'll wake up and see what I see when I look at myself." She swallowed. A woman dried out by time. Someone who forgot how to be anything but alone. That cut through me clean. This capable, resilient woman measuring her worth by the winters she'd survived, instead of the life she still carried. I reached for the dish towel and gently drew her hands from the basin. Her skin was warm, despite the cold water soft beneath the work-worn calluses. I dried each finger carefully, as if it mattered. As if she did. "Do you want to know what I see?" I asked. She didn't pull away. "I see a woman who opens her door to strangers in a blizzard, who teaches a lost boy about chickens with more patience than the world ever showed him, who works from dawn to dark and never asks to be praised." My thumbs brushed her knuckles. I see Grace Abigail. I see strength. And I see someone who's gone so long without kindness, she's forgotten she deserves it. Her breath caught. The space between us felt alive, charged with a wanting so strong it thickened the air. I stepped closer, easing her back against the cabin wall. "Tell me to stop," I said. "Tell me I'm wrong and I won't speak of this again." She didn't. Instead, her eyes fell to my mouth, then lower to the pulse beating at my throat. "I don't know how," she said quietly. "It's been so long since anyone wanted me, truly wanted me for more than what I could give." The way she said it sounded like a confession, not a truth. Then let me show you, I said. And I kissed her. It was gentle at first, careful asking permission even as I claimed it. When she answered me, when her hands twisted into my shirt and that small aching sound escaped her, I knew I was already lost. I had been since the night she opened her door. Jonah Reed's voice, calling for breakfast, shattered the moment. We jumped apart, breathless. Abigail smoothed her skirt with unsteady hands, refusing to meet my eyes. "The boy," she said. I nodded. I understood. We needed patience. Time. But as I watched her walk back toward the cabin, my heart pounded hard enough to hurt. There was nothing patient about what had woken inside me. That evening, after Jonah fell asleep by the fire with his whittling knife resting loose in his fingers, I found my nerve again. Abigail sat at the kitchen table, ledger open, neat columns filling yellowed pages. "Abigail," I said, "we need to talk about what's happening here." She kept her eyes on the numbers. "What's happening? You know," I said. "This thing between us, it isn't fading." She set down her pen and looked at me fully. Firelight softened her features, turning shadows into curves, making her beautiful in a way that felt honest. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of myself. Of this." She gestured between us. "Of wanting something I might not be able to hold on to." I moved in front of her chair and covered her hands with mine. "What if I told you I'm not leaving?" I said. "What if I told you I've been looking for home my whole life and I found it here?" Tears slipped free then. "I'm 51, she said. "And you're 35. "So," what I answered. "People can talk if they want." I brushed the tears from her cheeks. "I don't care what anyone else thinks." I held her gaze. "I only care what you think." She searched my face, hunting for doubt. She didn't find any. There was no doubt left in me, only the calm resolve of a man who had finally found the thing he didn't know he was missing. "Marry me," I said softly. "Not because it makes sense, not because it's easy, but because I love you. Because when I looked at Abigail Crow, I saw the woman I wanted to grow old beside." "Yes," she whispered. "Do you ever have a moment that splits your life clean in two? One second you're standing where you've always stood, and the next, the ground shifts, and you realize you've stepped into a different story entirely?" That was it for me. That single word, it drifted between us like a blessing in the firelight. I reached into my pocket and brought out the ring I'd been shaping in secret smooth river stone, set into a band carved from creek wood. From the place Jonah Reed and I had been headed that first night, I said as I slid it onto her finger. "If a storm could lead me to you, I figured the river beside it ought to mark the promise." She laughed through tears, turning her hand to catch the light. The ring fit, as if it had always belonged there. When she asked, "Tomorrow, if you'll have me. Next month, if you need time," I answered. But we both knew. We'd known since that morning by the wash basin, maybe even before. Some things ask for patience. Others demand you don't wait at all. That night, once Jonah was asleep, we came together by the fading fire, drawn close, like people who'd gone too long without warmth. Her hands traced my jaw, as if she needed proof I was real. When I lifted her blouse, she shivered, not just from the cold, but from the reverence of being touched without hurry. I kissed the silver at her temples, the lines she thought counted against her. I told her how beautiful she was, how long I'd been waiting without knowing it. When we moved together on that old rug firelight flickering over us, it wasn't just bodies meeting. It was two broken pieces discovering they fit, making something whole, something sacred. We were married 3 weeks later beneath the cottonwoods, Jonah standing between us, holding wild columbines like treasure. No preacher, no crowd. Just vows spoken to the wind and sealed with dirt beneath our nails. Abigail wore her mother's pearl earrings and a blue calico dress she'd sewn herself. I shaved clean and combed my hair back, hoping I looked worthy of her. When she walked toward me through the tall grass skirts lifted by the breeze, something inside my chest finally settled. "I promise to see all of you," I said. "Every day. I promise to let you." She answered, tears bright as cut glass, and to remember that love doesn't come with an ending date. Jonah whooped when we kissed, his voice echoing off the hills like a benediction. The years that followed were good ones. My boy grew tall and sure, married Clara Reed, built a house on the North Ridge, and brought the Reed children down every Sunday until our cabin rang with laughter. Abigail and I found our rhythm easily. We worked side by side through the days, walked the fence lines each evening with our fingers linked. At night she curled against me in our narrow bed, and I'd trace the ring I'd made, still marveling that she was mine. Time takes everything eventually. Abigail lived to see 73 winters. She watched Jonah's children grow, saw the railroad cut through the valley, saw a world neither of us could have imagined that first night in the storm. When fever came for her again, it was gentle this time. She passed in our bed, my hand in hers. Her last words were about the ring, how it still fit just right after all those years. I laid her to rest beside the cabin we'd shared beneath the cottonwoods, where we'd spoken our vows. I cut her name deep into the stone, Abigail Crow, and marked the years that held our love. Wife, mother, the woman who taught an old fool that home can still be found even late. What haunts me isn't the life I lived before her, not the miles I drifted chasing a thing I couldn't name. What haunts me is how close I came to riding past that cabin on the night the storm swallowed everything. How easily this whole life might never have happened. Love doesn't ask your age or keep score of your fears. It arrives when it pleases, often when you're least ready, and asks only whether you'll answer. Abigail answered. Turns out I did too. The ring rests on the mantel now beside our picture, and the wildflowers Jonah Reed's granddaughter brings each spring. It reminds me that some storms carry more than wind and snow. Sometimes they bring exactly what you need, right when you need it. Right and wrong aren't always clean lines out here. But love comes close to grace, as close as most of us will ever get. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to stay with us to discover more true tales of the Wild West. Stories that honor resilience, tenderness, and the spirit that God placed in those who blazed the trail. Subscribe, share, leave your thoughts in the comments, and join us once again to journey across this untamed land. Thank you. Aviso legal/disclaimer. These stories are crafted purely for entertainment and may contain imaginative additions or dramatic interpretations inspired by old frontier eras. We use AI-based resources, voice imagery, and drafting as part of our creative process, but every final detail is carefully reviewed and shaped by human effort to preserve emotional depth and authenticity. We strictly follow YouTube's rules regarding AI-generated content and refrain from deepfakes, altered identities, or misleading representations. All images, sounds, and related materials are lawfully obtained. Please do not reuse, modify, or distribute any portion of this content without written permission. Thank you for valuing creativity, respect, and original work.